This is where the fun begins.
What happens when you, especially when you're making a science fiction film, but almost any film, you're working with limited resources, and you're constantly sort of bumping up against the technology that you have. Cinema is an extremely technological medium. So you're defined by those two barriers. One is resources, one is technology. And Star Wars especially bumped up against those. So I was never really able to tell the story that I wanted to tell. I had to self-censor the story down to something I knew could be done given the technology I had available. And I would push it occasionally. I'd develop a way of panning in outer space. I would develop a way of creating a 2.5 foot high character that could act. And, you know, really, so at that point, really challenges. And especially with the first film, I had very limited resources. I mean, the budget was $9,999,000, and for a film of that scope, it was, you know, almost an impossible exercise. I was used to it. I mean, the other movies I'd made had all been under $1 million, so I could sort of deal with that sort of thing. But at the same time, I was frustrated, and I got the film finished somehow. But it wasn't finished to the level that I'd want it to be finished. And there's a saying that films aren't well, I guess there's a saying among directors that a film is never finished, it's just abandoned. And for other directors, it's the film is never finished, they just finally take it away from you at some point. But no matter how the story goes, the director is usually left frustrated and not feeling that he's been able to complete his vision, or it's been altered one way or another. And so later on I had the opportunity when we were thinking about reissuing the films for the 20th anniversary of Star Wars, of fixing them up. And I said, well, this is a great chance for me to experiment with the new technology and see if I can do the prequels, and at the same time fix a lot of things that I was really frustrated with first time around with Star Wars that I couldn't complete properly because I either didn't have enough time, money, or technology to do it with. And so that was a great experience for me. So the final version, now the DVD version of the films, when they finally get out there, will have all of the nuances that I've been looking for when I first did the films.
It is settled then. My wealth will fund the rebellion while Garm provides our fleet and Mon Mothma our soldiers.
An elegant weapon for a more civilized age. Are you sure? So be it.
Caf. Lots of it. For me and for the Ready Room. I have a feeling this mission is not one we can fly in our sleep.
Good morning. Excuse me, everyone. Welcome to Thursday morning. Yes, morning where I live at Caf Chat. I know I have listeners throughout the world, so you guys are friggin' amazing. I went to friggin' instead of fucking. What is that? All right, I guess I'm trying to be a little censored here. Not usually an OG Star Wars thing, right? But good morning, everyone, and welcome to Caf Chat. I'm your host, OG Star Wars, or Laura Baga, and I am so excited to be here with you again this Thursday morning. Yeah, and I do have my caf on me. I do have my coffee. For those who don't know the Star Wars equivalent word for calf or coffee, it is calf. And Soul Assassin, calf does not mean milk. We had this little conversation before. He really thought that calf meant milk, you guys. Seriously. And I kind of can see because calf sounds like, calf like cow or, yeah, cow, the female cow or something like that. But anyways, that was funny. Yeah, so I do have my calf here, and I do have I wanted to be on camera today. I was going to do that and fix myself up and everything, and then I got entangled or basically engulfed in some research to prove some people wrong about certain things about the EU. And I do have the source books that were mentioned regarding if the EU is canon or not. So I went ahead and pulled them out and discovered, as always, these anti-EU people don't put full context of what they're quoting in. And I will share that pretty soon. So I got engulfed in that, and I didn't really get myself ready like I wanted to. But my mug, so you guys have to take my word for this. I'll take a picture of it and put it on Twitter if you want. But my mug is basically Jabba the Hutt, and so yeah, so I'm drinking out of a Jabba the Hutt mug. That's kind of funny, right? But you know me, I am the person that if I feel something is being or someone is being disingenuous and they share a source and I can find the whole source somehow, research it, I will look further into the context around the quote, because usually there's more things than meets the eye around that quote. And then that really changes the context of what they're sharing. And so it's very important for anyone who gets these quotes that are anti-EU or even anti-George Lucas or anti-EU when it comes to Lucas. Any one of those, for whatever reason, I don't understand why people are so hard-strung to think or prove that George Lucas didn't like the EU, didn't approve of the EU, isn't involved or part of his greater business regarding the EU. There's all of that. So, yeah, does Lucas contradict himself a lot? He has in the past. Did his company correct statements that he said? Yes, they have. So there is all of that. We got to take all of that into consideration about how what George and the company, which he is not separate from the company, says, and how he has contradicted himself, and how his own company had to course correct some things. And that's fine. Business owners, they hire people to keep track of bigger dealings within the company that they can't. And it's not, I wouldn't say it's beneath them, but they have their time and effort needs to be elsewhere. And so that also has to be taken in consideration. I'm my own business owner and stuff. And so if I do hire someone to help me like keep my studio clean and tidy, which I should, because I get so busy, I do have a working chaos. Basically, I have there's a big, huge empty canvas right in front of me right now. And then on top of my easel is another equally big piece of work I'm working on. And then next to it is a tray where I could put my paints and everything that are my mediums that I'm using to work on. And on the chair next to it basically is my board of beads and a bead project I'm working on. So I have an active creative chaos going on. And then right across from that is the bookshelf with not only my EU books, my Star Wars books, but also other books that needs to be reorganized. So if I hired someone to help, take care of the space and stuff for me, that's an example. They're taking care of the continuity of my studio while I work on stuff for you guys and work on the bigger projects. So anyways, I'm coming in loaded. Yes, I am. That sounds funny. Coming in loaded. How are you guys doing? We are going to talk, and I'm going to get into the chat and say hello. Not forgetting about you guys. Love you guys. We are going to talk. We're going to do our lore talk. We are getting close to a Skywalker's death. I'm not trying to take my time with it. There's so much to uncover and talk about leading up to that. and also the fall of Coruscant is coming up too. So I am trying to strategically probably do these two major events separately, maybe, because it's very important to discuss that and how it affects not only the Skywalker family with the death, and many of you guys know who the death is. I mean, who doesn't? And but also the fall of Coruscant and what happens with that. I think it's very important to get into the nooks and crannies of that for you guys when we're talking about these major events that are very pivotal for this timeline, this portion of the timeline in New Jedi Order, that sets up a lot of things going forward, including how Jason is and what happens to him, what happens with Jaina and her mentality. There's a lot of stuff going on. And then even there's something that happens or that tries, like there's an event that involves baby Ben Skywalker. And so, you know, I want to be able to cover that in more in depth with you guys to create a greater conversation with you guys on this. So we have 36 beautiful souls watching, listening. Thank you so much for coming in and participating. Now, let me go ahead and say hello here. And then I'm going to pull up what I'm talking about with the encyclopedia. Good morning, Alora. Hello, chat. Hit the like button. Hey, what's up? When I set up the stream last night, I forgot to put not kid friendly as an option. When you put kid friendly, there's a lot of things that is not included, including like the chat, open chat, where you can open and talk on here before it goes live and stuff. So Soul Assassin pointed that out. So another Caf Chat. Why can't OG ever take us to Alderaan or Ithor or maybe Typhon, anywhere that's not full of metal or jagged rocks or alien creatures that won't eat us? Well, I mean, you know, Alderaan, if we, depending on the timeline, when we go to Alderaan, we'll also determine if it's actually there, right? And let's see here. Y'all do know, don't you, of course, that algorithm gets OG. Any chance of keeping legacy, Lucas's legacy going will be lost. Smash like button. Smash it. Yes, smash it. The algorithm for this channel is very important. We were climbing pretty steady with subscribers and everything. And then this last week, I went on a standstill, and now we're starting to climb again. So let's get this out there to everyone who it cares about and wants to learn more about the George Lucas era of Star Wars. That's mine. And then Scran is here, of course. Yes, and say we ignore proof. Let me see here. Content does matter, yes. Listen up, nerd cookies. And oh yes, I was going to get to this, but since you mentioned it here, yes, Admiral Piet, so the actor passed away, and you know, it's crazy how all these OG characters, you know, we're slowly seeing them leave us. And goddamn, I'm old. Hey, no, I don't feel old, and I don't look old, and but yeah. So, you know, it's crazy. It is. So rest in peace. Rest in peace. All right. Melissa Lord, a channel member, is here. And, you know, Soul Assassin and Scran are our mods here. And if you become a channel member, so like, subscribe, and share. As always, if you're listening, you're brand new here and you haven't subscribed yet, do so. Do so. Become a channel member. I offer book club every Sunday, 6 p.m. unless stated. We are moving through the second book of the Young Jedi Knights. So even if you read them before, come in and join us and let's talk. You know, there's some things that maybe you'll catch that you never did, or maybe there's something you could share that we've never caught. Because when you go and do a reread, you are more open to discover other things that maybe didn't really, you know, you didn't really notice on the first read. But if you're brand new to it, join us anyways. We're only in the middle, towards the middle book too. So you can always go to the Young Jedi Knights YouTube channel here and listen to book 1 to catch up. Not bad at all. It's only 4 hours. You could put it on for next 2 days or a day while you clean the house and move around and stuff. Boom, caught up. So join us. I would love to have every single one of you guys in the chat with me every Sunday so we can discuss and nerd out about real Star Wars. Let me see here. And Silver is here. He does join me for that as well. Scran has before, but I don't think he did this last because of his time where he lives at. Like it gets difficult, and I understand. All right, let's see here. And we have High King Fingolfin of the Noldor. Yo, what's up? We have some Lord of the Rings people coming in, and that's pretty cool. I love that lore too. Aim more carefully, Scran. I don't know what that is about. Zagarat315, how are you doing? And Conrado from the Philippines. Hello, fellow Filipino brother. Let's see here. Our sister, did I don't want to misgender you. I don't. All right, let's see here. And Swift -1, Matt G, what's up? How are you doing? And let's see here. Anything else? Nerd Migos, good morning. Hola. Hola to you. And let's see here. And we drink Caf, and Master Skywalker drinks hot chocolate. Yes, he does. He is a hot chocolate connoisseur. And let's see here. When do you when you do a painting, the sketch isn't canon to the finished piece. It is the initial foundation, I guess you could say. And if you guys want to know the piece I have now started, my Star Wars series that I do, the fan series that I do, is just gives me a break from the initial series, other painting series I'm doing for my native contemporary native ledger art collection I'm doing. And I'm having fun doing the origins that I have. And I have Mara Jade that I need to finish some details and stuff on there, and it'll be done. Then I'll varnish and I'll make copies or prints, copies to print, or I'll scan it to make prints. And then I am also doing the Sith Eye. Yeah, I'm doing the Sith Eye series. And so the next one I'm working on is not necessarily a huge close-up of, but it is of Darth Bane's eye. And so that's what is being worked on right now. I do have the underpainting already to go, or already done. And now I just need to start laying down the colors and start working on it to the finished product. I am planning on doing Darth Zana's next, but it's going to be a different profile of the eye, which I think is very important when you're doing any type of study or work. You want to do different angles or different views, no pun intended, and even different direction the eye is facing or looking. I think it's very important to get that type of perspective. And this is not necessarily an eye study I'm doing. I'm just having fun doing Sith eyes. So, hell, why not, Lucas Gerson is here. Hello. Whoa, what the hell was that? Let me take a zip. All right, how are you doing? Glad you are here. Star by Star, one of the best books in the franchise. Yeah, I agree. And if you guys haven't had a chance to, when you're done, go over to Star Wars Marvel's Purist YouTube post and vote on your favorite author. We're down to the final 4 runners. So go and vote for that. And you'll see what I voted for. And you know what? I did not vote for Lucino. I did not. I did not. So you go see. You'll see who, those who are voting and left their vote in the comment section of that post. You'll see who voted for what. Backseater is here. What's up? Hey, OG. When's the next time we get to talk about the favorite Star Trek villain in Star Wars? Oh, you mean Thrawn? You mean Thrawn, the only person that, because there's no strategists in Star Wars, right? So Thrawn is the very first one, and he is basically a Star Trek villain. I'm not shitting you. That's what I was told this last couple of days, that Thrawn is basically a Star Trek villain because he's a strategic villain. Yep. That's what I got. So you guys can go at it, have at it as you will. Some of these people that favor more of Disney Star Wars, are local. They're local in the head. They are fucking crazy. All right. Let's see here. And who else am I missing? I'm scrolling down just to make sure. I have Calcite. The lion is here. Greetings there. How are you doing? And then double A. How are you doing? Yes. I don't have that on here. I debated on putting that clip on here, but then I'm like, you know what? It's funny as hell, but I don't know. It's kind of annoying too. Not just Star Trek villain, but a Star Trek villain of the week. Dun dun dun. All right. So before we get into the book of the week and LucasFact, let's get into more of basically overall Star Wars fact. Star Wars fact. What is that? Now, topics always evolve and change. And this morning, I didn't get a chance to see if there's any breaking Star Wars news or any kind of news out there regarding Lucasfilm or Disney pertaining to Star Wars, because I was basically doing my research. So let me go ahead and pull it up. I should have had it ready to go, but I didn't. So that's my fault. Usually I have everything ready to go, but when I get caught up in research and stuff, I tend to just miss out on some things and are not as organized as I want to be, but that's okay. Let's see here. So growing up with Star Wars, you guys, EU are somewhat of an EU fan. Did you ever think that the games you were playing, like, are the storyline to the games that you were playing, the comics that you were reading, or even the novels that you decided to dive into because you were very curious to see what happens past the movies, like with our heroes, what's going on, the history of Star Wars? Did you ever think it was not canon to the movies? Did you ever see any statement from the company saying it was not canon? Now, these are serious questions because, like I said earlier, you know, we have people, anti-EU people, saying, well, George never seen it as canon or part of his canon, but his canon is the sagas, right? The movies. And he has stated many times that it was part of the saga. Now, does he believe that, or does he work on them all the damn time? No, he doesn't. In fact, we never expected him to write and be very much involved like 24/7. We have never said that, but he has been involved in some way, shape, or form. He has approved in some way, shape, or form because it exists and it's a part of, and it links to, it is a part of the movie foundation. And, you know, he's hired people, he has brought in people, his company has brought in people. Now no one can make a new department or make a new position without, you know, the authority of George Lucas. He is the boss of the company. So people were brought in to maintain the continuity, right? To record the data of the continuity. And even when that was being established under Sue Ristoni, she took it upon herself. And that became a position that needed to be filled because it became a greater position to maintain, right? And so we have the holocron keeper, the continuity keeper, later hired, and that is Leland. So everything was made to complement each other. Like all the books, like George Lucas got the world record for having so many books tied to the foundation under the movies. He breaks records with that. Now, if it wasn't a single canon or single continuity in the canon, that could not have happened. That world record could not have happened. So with that being said, let me go ahead and share. Okay, so I have dealt with someone who used this this quote, and it's funny because the first time I had interactions with him, he was saying it was a source book, an RPG source book. Now he says it is encyclopedia, which probably he got the source wrong, we tend to get it wrong when we share stuff if we're not knowing what we're talking about, and then realize, and then later on maybe do a little bit more research, maybe, and then course correct ourselves. That's a common thing, right? So I make mistakes too. So that being said, I went ahead and researched, because I do have the Star Wars Encyclopedia from 1998 on my shelf. And so I was like, okay, so what is he saying about in this? Steve Sansweet says that the only thing that's canon are the movies, what George makes. So I'm paraphrasing. I'll share the information with you guys here pretty quick. And so what else is being said in that? Because through my time researching these quotes, I have uncovered people are using them disingenuously and leaving out further context to what's going on. What's going on? And maybe yeah, you're right, Anthony. Maybe he did take it from Wikipedia, which is not a reliable source. Let's see here. Get down from there. All right, dude. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull these up so that you guys have a further understanding of where I am going from with this. Okay, and so here we go. Here we go. Let's see. So this is from, and I have the encyclopedia right next to me, or where did it go? It's over here somewhere. Or no, what did I do with it? It's right next to me. But anyways, yeah, it's stacked in the books here. So it's an encyclopedia from 1998, and these encyclopedias ever grow. There's like even current ones right before the buyout that exist, right? So this is a 1998 version, which we know that they're ever growing, and so we have there, like I said, there's a 4-book collection of the encyclopedias, because since 1998. Star Wars has expanded with its lore, characters, locations, all of that, right? So this is what he shares here. Which brings us to the often asked question, just what is Star Wars canon and what is not? One sure answer, the Star Wars trilogy, special editions, the 3 films themselves as executive produced, and in the case of Star Wars, written and directed by George Lucas, are canon. And you know what? This guy relatively leaves out the PT, because you know what? The PT wasn't here yet. So actually, yeah, this was published in 1998. So in production, as this was coming out, The Phantom Menace. So that's not there. So I'm just letting you guys know that the time frame, the PT is not mentioned because it's being produced right as this is published. Coming in a close second, we have the authorized adaptation of the films, the novels, radio drama, and the comics. After that, almost everything falls into the category of quasi-canon. So what does quasi-canon mean? It can possibly be canon. So he uses a vague term to not get into too much detail on what is and isn't canon within the EU, because we know there are some things within the EU that are not canon, like labeled ledge or infinities. So like infinities, and then they started Disney Lucasfilm started relegating some of the old first Marvel comics as quasi-canon or as a non-canon, unless something is taken from them into the actual canon, like Lumaya. And so we have that. So he says a vague statement here, not to get into full detail, but nowhere does it say that everything else is not canon. And so why does this person leave this out? Because then it disproves his statement. And this is what I take issue with people. Because they leave things out, because then it really destroys their initial statement. There's another quote that this person shared that I haven't had a chance to sit down and research yet, but I always research these quotes that are used, because there's always some kind of context within it that they fail to share that really debunks what they're saying. And so when you have anti-EU people even using anti-EU tactics to say George Lucas didn't like, didn't work on, didn't consider it, this or that or whatever, to discredit the EU, look into these quotes further. Find out where they come from, find the source where they come from, the actual interview, the actual imprint that it comes out of, and do your research. Debunk the shit. I have debunked a lot of quotes that have been used in the past. One quote was used in one example, I guess you could say, that was used by that David Talk Star Wars, and it goes into some kind of quote saying that, so I forget exactly the topic, but it's a quote taken out of the making of Return of the Jedi, and they try to say that it is canon, this whatever bit was canon, to debunk further what is canon or not under George, regarding the EU. And so I went and researched that quote, found it inside the making of Return of the Jedi. And in that section, in the green pictures in that initial source book of the making of Return of the Jedi, usually the sections that are green pages are basically development of the movies that are not canon anymore, are not even canon or was considered. They were just thoughts and ideas. And they specifically say that. However, they left that out. So you see where this how people are so disingenuous that they don't do their research, and and we need to question and do further research on those areas. So there is a second part of this, but I basically just use the second part. Let me see if I can click. Nope. Let me go ahead and take this out because I don't want to expose any DMs and stuff. But there are second parts to this. I just wanted to share because it just gives us a greater idea of what's going on. There we go. Let me see if it's going to show up on my screen down here. I think it is. Add to stage. All right. So this is a continuation of what they're talking about. Ensure that everything published fits together. So basically they're saying everything, this is to ensure everything fits together, meaning fits to the movies and the greater EU. There's a lot of discussion between and among the authors of the various books and comic. That's why a minor planet casually mentioned once in a past novel may become an important site in a current or a future one. Or the spirit of towering figure who died 4,000 years before the Battle of Yavin comes back to play a major role in the life of Luke Skywalker. And he's probably talking about Exar Kun or something, right? And so that quasi-canon, just make sure he doesn't have to go into full detail and write further about what is and isn't canon when it comes to the EU, what is being brought in non-canon material that makes it canon. And this is an example of what he says, even though Exar Kun has always been canon. And George Lucas drew inspiration from even Exar Kun for the movies, just like, like the Phantom Menace, the double-bladed lightsaber, right? And so he's taken inspiration from the EU to continue to world build. XR, the most overlooked Sith ever, correct. So, again, the lesson here is question everything on this anti-EU, anti-George, and anti-EU towards George rhetoric, because more than likely we're going to debunk their narrative, the quotes that they share. Quasi-canon doesn't mean it's not canon. And then also quasi-canon is another way of saying, it is canon unless, George or anybody changes directions with it. George, and we never stated that, everything that is put into Star Wars overrides what George wants. He is the creator. He is the boss. He is also the one that has, approved important details of the novels. And so what he wants is basically in the EU. What he doesn't is not. So there we go. So I think, Scran, I did send this to you. If you haven't received it, let me know. But I did send you the copy of this, of these pages, so that you can use for anything else that you want to, because I know you do keep track of continuity and these quotes and stuff like that. And so I did send you these into your email. So just if you could check it and confirm, because I sent it from my phone out of my photos, and sometimes that shit can get lost. All right, so let me see what you guys are saying here, and then we'll get into the Lucas facts. Let's see here. Lucas facts is very interesting. All right, let's see here. Disney shields in a nutshell. The EU was never canon because George Lucas was never involved and never considered as canon. Oh, everything. Yeah, and then even though Lucas never worked on Disney Star Wars, it's canon. Yep. Let's see here. OG got knowledge and books, but Melissa Lord got the Master Sword, and our Kina, our Ocarina of Time. Is that what you're saying? I was that misspelled, or am I just fucking up the word? Let's see here. You guys are funny. 1330 would have been LucasArts' redemption after Connect Star Wars disaster. Let's see here. Fat Elon Thrawn. Yes, Fat Elon Thrawn. that is the Star Trek one. All right, so let's go ahead. We're gonna move on. Let me see. Whoops, wrong one. I gotta take you out and not put you back in, dude. All right, edit, stop screen. There we go. I hate pressing these buttons sometimes. Hit the bong bong. There you go. Hit the bong bong. Just checked. I received the email. You're the best. Thank you so much. There you go. And there's more too that I can send you. I will figure out like some things that I debunked that David talks with and send you that information. Since Elon bought Twitter X and he like redesigned it, some posts that were from that time frame no longer show up. So if I could find it on Twitter, it'd be easier. If not, then I'd have to go back and figure out exactly what was being talked about and send you that information. So, but there's a lot. There is a lot. And I'm going to say, when you use a company, or not a company, when you use a fan website that is very, very biased, you know what? I'm going to pull it up too. That is very, very biased as your source to rely on for your research, then that source is not reliable in itself. And I'll share an example to what I am talking about here. I think it's very important to share this kind of information. Yes, I am going off. I am going off tracks a little bit here. Off tracks. It's not off topic because it's very important to discuss, right? It is very important to discuss. So this is that. Oh, no, this is the wrong one. This is proof that this person doesn't know how to do the research. That's one thing, but that's not what I need. Let's see, stop screen. Let's see here. And you guys know that I absolutely do take the time to do my research and take care of things on my end. Just so that, where did it go? Let's see here. Spicers. I did share it. Oh, here it is. Good. It's an easy scroll on that side. All right. So my point is this. Let me go ahead and enlarge the screen. When you do use a fan source or website, and wait, let me put some whiskey in my calf before you go on a rampage, OG. Okay, proceed. All right. So when you use a fan-created, curated website that begins with this type of narrative, an argument I hear from time and time is the following. I don't care that the novel is considered legends. If it was canon when George Lucas was in charge of Lucasfilm, it is still canon to me. Whatever George says is what counts. I don't care what Disney says. So he's using a very vague statement, which I have really never heard anybody say whatsoever. I haven't. Scran, have you? Soul Assassin, have you? Purist, hopefully you're listening. Have you? Anthony, Calcite, Melissa, I mean, everybody in here, have you ever said such a statement like that? And then it says, putting the expanded universe of Star Wars and George Lucas's Star Wars in the same basket, that's inaccurate. Well, since when was George Lucas separate from his company? When was the movie separate from his company? That's the question. Yeah, you're right, Lucas Gerson. A website like that back in the 2000s would have been treated as a joke. You are absolutely correct. But since when was George Lucas separate from his company? Is there a Lucas Star Wars division? No, not really. There's departments. You have the animation department. You have ILM, which basically you could say is the movie department. You have the licensing, which goes into books, novels, all of that. You have the gaming department, but they are all under Lucasfilm, all working together based upon the Star Wars lore that was made by George. They are not separate. Neither is George separate from his company. Imagine using Dave Talks as a definitive source. I know, right? This is kind of crap Momo is using in this video. It'll be a breeze to debunk. There's a lot of things that are going to be debunked. And there's another site that I looked up all the sources that he cited. And I commend that this person did cite his sources, but I looked them up and I had to laugh. I had to laugh because a lot of this is just a narrative that was debunked. This Dave Talks, if you look into it, and I shared it with Soul Assassin last night, if you look into the site, you can clearly tell he does not know anything about the EU and the development of the EU. He uses disingenuous blanket statements against the EU to show it's not canon, blah, 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 blah. And there's a lot of that on there. So here we go. Okay, so let's see. Stop screen. I will share an example with you guys again, and then we'll press on. I promise you, we will press on. We will press on. Let's see here. And let's see here. Oh my God, these cats are running around and they just knocked down my fucking curtain in the living room. Let's see here. I have chaos going on, maybe because I am like full of this energy and stuff, and my energy is just out there. It's kind of funny. All right, let's see here. Okay, what should I use? There's two examples here. Holy crap, there's two examples, but we'll use the Coyote Moody one. Blah, blah. Let's see here. All right. This is so fucking funny. It's like, let's get the larger screen here. So this Dave Talks, he's trying to say the EU is not consistent with the movies on what George said, but he's not fully doing his research either. He says inconsistencies such as Coyote being a knight on the council, who is married and has kids, when the Jedi being prohibited from marrying is a major plot point in the prequels. So this was made when the prequels were coming out. And we know that whatever George doesn't want doesn't happen. However, he doesn't expand on why Mundi, has a wife or two, and why why all this is happening. Why is he helping repopulate his world? He fails to leave all of that out. And with this, he's a venerable Jedi no matter what. And he puts down here, Chad Jedi who's got like a harem. Oh, that's it sounds like a fucking valley girl. A Chad Jedi who's got like a harem full of wives and had sex multiple times multiple times and was trained by Yoda and the Dark Woman. He fails, and I don't have the continuation of this, but trust me, you could research yourself and take a look at that. He fails to leave. He fails. He leaves out the important information of why he has these wives and why he's having sex multiple times. It's to propagate the species. It's to make sure his species doesn't go extinct. And there is exception to the rules. There's always is in any type of society, and we see that even in Star Wars, exception to the rules, right? Soul Assassin says Kai Adimundi's species have low male births compared to female births. So to keep the species going, the Jedi allowed him to take wives, yes, and have kids to propagate, to I guess you could say procreate. And this does not go against anything. Really, it doesn't. Like they said, there's exception to the rules. Like Space Korea. All right. So this is just an example of the bullshit in this site, in this that is being used to try to debunk us EU elitists. But that's not the point. The point is, my point in talking about all of this is being... Let me see how I'm going to put this. Being truthful, being honest about what you're researching. Don't be dishonest by cutting things out, important information, because then you are only discrediting yourself, not anybody else, not the EU. It doesn't make the point that George didn't consider canon or his canon, whatever. It doesn't make that point either. You are just proving how dishonest you are and not a reliable person. And I'll leave it at that. Yeah, Scran, there is no debate that it is canon. And that's the thing. No matter what you put together, that doesn't change the fact that it was treated as a single continuity in the canon. That doesn't change the fact that that's how it was treated. It doesn't change anything. At all. At all. All right. So let's get into our LucasFacts. It's a bit information, but it's not a big read or anything like that, but there's a lot of information to go within it. So let's go ahead and check it out.
That's great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
It's going to be great.
That's going to be great.
All right. So May 1977, and this source comes from the Making of Star Wars timeline. Many of the props and models used in the recent finished film are stored in a storage unit owned by Dollar Moving and Storage in Southern California. Following post-production, Fox no longer wanted to pay rent on the storage facility and decided to discard everything that had been stored for the film. That kind of sounds like, they didn't like George, right? Like they discarded everything. Crew members were able to save a few random pieces, including the original Death Star model and segments of the Death Star trench. One crew member, Doug W., kept the Death Star model on display in his home in California for nearly the next 10 years before eventually moving to Missouri in the late 1980s. So it sounds like, because George didn't want studio control whatsoever, like outside studio control. And he bit the bullet for asking for funding from Fox, and then broke ties with them, basically. The Darth Star, I know. The Darth Star, the Death Star. The Darth Star. I'm not going to have that live down now, the Darth Star. So we know that Hollywood did not like George Lucas at all. And this is I think this is another way to prove that, because, they just let everything go. They didn't say, and, mind you, I'm going to have to research this a little bit more. But it sounds like they didn't say, hey, George, what do you want to do with your movie stuff, all your props and stuff? Hey, Star Wars Marvel purists, what's up? Yeah. So this is LucasFact. And I think this is a bit of evidence how Hollywood didn't really care for George, and basically just said, oh, well, we don't want to pay for his shit anymore. We're not working with him or alongside him anymore, and just let the shit go. And let the shit go. So this is LucasFacts, kind of sad a little bit, but you know what? The thing is that he rebuilt. George always overcomes adversity, no matter what. And I think that's what makes him such a great entrepreneur, such a great visionist. He never gave up, no matter what the circumstances. Lucas should open a Star Wars prop museum to be awesome. That would be awesome. It would. I agree. It would be friggin' awesome. And I can't wait. Once he's done with this museum down in Southern California, I'm gonna go check it out. I am gonna check it out. I am excited about it. I want to see what he has to add in there. If there's any type of Star Wars artifacts and stuff like that he still has remaining on him that he shares, all of that. I can't wait. I can't wait. So as far as I know it, I think it's still in production. Privately owned Lucas Museum, correct, purist? Privately owned, which he did privately own his own filming company, basically his own franchise, because it's not, it's not necessarily the films. We talk about the film basically has set the foundation of the franchise, right? But when you look further, and a lot of us here probably know this, many people may not know this, and anti-EUs or anti-George Lucas era Star Wars people get all pissy about that. But the first Star Wars material to come out was not the movies. It was the book and the comic. Proving that this is a multimedia franchise, that it's all connected together through various mediums to tell the story, and they all link together. No matter what the medium is, they all link together into a single continuity, into the canon. And that's how he designed it. A commie would want a government-funded and ran museum. OG interviews Lucas with Wilkins would be awesome, Scran. That would, you know what? I don't put people on pedestals. I don't, like when I meet actors, and there's a lot of native actors I have met and known and talked to personally and kept in touch with for a while. And I never brag about that, but that's just something. But I treat them like humans. That's their job, their occupation. I want to talk to them as a human, not as a star. I admire their accomplishments. That's great, but I don't chill out like that, I guess you could say. I don't know what else to call that. Melissa Lord says the novel, The Adventures of Luke Skywalker from the Journal of the Whills was published in 1976 before anything else. Correct. To be fair, OG, I've seen what the shills and anti-EU people like on people like on it. It makes you lose faith in humanity. And just imagine, hashtag chill out, just imagine using Reddit and Tumblr and Wikipedia as your source against EU purists. I would say, I am an EU purist, but no, I'm more or less a George Lucas era of Star Wars purist or elite or whatever you want to call that. All right. So with that being said, this is the LucasFact of the week, basically, the LucasFact facts, and it is on Twitter, so you can see it published there. And I keep on forgetting to publish here on YouTube on the post part of my page. Sorry about that. Let's see here. A sign of laziness, correct. Let's go ahead and get into the next one here. So the book of the week, which it was funny, I watched Wilkins, thank you, Soul Assassin, for finding it because I didn't even think about it, but I watched Wilkins' review of this. And so, like I say, I always like to have you guys, do your own, opinion, read, experience, and make your own opinion. Don't necessarily rely on mine, even if I might not like something. Like, I don't care for Star by Star. It's one of the worst of this EU, right? However, if you haven't read it and you're like, should I? I'm like, check it out. You may like it, and stuff. So would I say no so you don't waste your time? No, because I don't think that's fair either. I don't think it's fair. All right. With that being said, we are going to get into the book of the week.
I hate to say it, but it looks like the item you're searching for doesn't exist.
Impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
If an item does not appear in our records, it does not exist.
All right, so here we go with book of the week. So this is a short story that was published in Star Wars Insider 66 on March 2003. So, of course, if you don't recognize the art, it is Jan Duursema along with Joe Wayne. Joe Wayne. And the author is Michael Stackpole. And this timeline is about 22 BBY. So the continuity notes that I put together for this is what I could find on information. And it takes place a week within the Battle of Geonosis. Neja Halcyon first appearing in a narrative tale. So this is the first time Neja Halcyon, appears in a narrative tale. However, he was first mentioned in the X-Wings Rogue Squadron as Corran Horn's grandfather. So this is Stackpole. This is one of Stackpole's characters, right? He is later featured prominently in the Jedi Trials. So basically, this goes back to Neja Halcyon, and we know that during the time frame of X-Wings, Lucas was like basically setting the rules of don't write within the PT timeline, the certain set of timeline. And so, these authors were just guessing the dates and stuff like that they thought there was a definitive date after what Lucas told them. And, then Lucas comes back and creates the PT and changes it up a little bit. And, he warned them, that's whatever. It is what it is. All we have to do is say, okay, well, the historical timeline was miscalculated by Imperial propaganda or whatever. But anyways, so this is the book of the week. It is Illusions, and it's by Michael Stackpole. Illusions, and I'm sure there's a website, and I can't find it. I don't remember the name of it, where it has a lot of the short stories on that website to read. I'm sorry, I was looking for it last night, so I can share that with you. So if you guys wanted to read the short story, you can. But I don't remember the damn website. So if anybody knows that website I'm talking about in the chat, please put it in the chat, or at least let me know or send it to me so I can. Is that Elagos? Is that Elagos? Yeah, so Star Wars Grant says, I have about an hour worth of the Agents of Chaos Heroes Trial audiobook left. I will finish tomorrow. Awesome. I need to go back. I'm going to go back and listen to it on YouTube, and so I could further take some notes for the coming unadulterated Star Wars. Yeah, so got a bit of homework to do. You know, I'm always assigning homework, but on my end, I have homework as well. So anyways, I thought that I would share a short story, and I thought this would be interesting because you have Michael Stackpole, one of, and I messed up his last name. It's supposed to have an E at the end. I thought I corrected that. I might have took that out by accident. But anyways, you have Michael Stackpole, one of the most favored writers in the EU. And then you have Jander Sima, one of the best illustrators for the comics. So these two coming together for the short story. Yes, Star Wars Marvel Pierce. You have to go. Yeah, I have to do that too. Let's see here. So this is it. So let's go ahead and let me remove this. Let's go ahead and start getting into our lore talk now, star by star. Again, always letting you guys know we are not reviewing the book. We are reviewing the events that take place during that time of the book, that time frame of the book. And so a different way of looking at each book per their events, what's going on, new characters, what's going on with the villains, all of that, just to give a more deeper perspective or view of the book in a sense. And like doing a book review, it takes a lot of time, right? Star Wars Marvel Pierce, I mean, he gathers a few people on the panel with him, and we try our best to cover points, what's going on, you know, traits of the characters and all of this. We try our best, and even to link the historical timeline, you know, the callbacks or the setups and stuff like that. It takes a lot of time. It does. And but it's fun. That's why we do it, right? It's fun. It's amazing. We have a good time. We get to laugh. We get to discover something that maybe we didn't think about. You know, maybe someone has a different perspective on a certain situation, and we're like, oh shit, I didn't think about it that way. So it's a way we are fucking nerds, right? We are nerds. We geek out. We go for it. It's fun. And with this part, what I'm doing, in fact, I got to grab the books. It's about getting further into the events and all that. So that's there we go. I'm gonna get off the pedestal again. Nerds, I know, that's why you're here, right? That's why you're a mod to a nerd channel, because you are one. You are one of us, Soul Assassin. You are one of us. And just deal with it, my friend. Deal with it. So with that being said, take the time to go refresh your caf or your drink, or grab a snack and grab your source book, New Jedi Order source book, and let's get at it.
Someone asked me to give the best reason why someone should read the Expanded Universe. After giving it a lot of thought, here's what I have to say. The Expanded Universe respects the reader. In the Expanded Universe, Luke Skywalker's optimism continues where it left off in Return of the Jedi. He's fulfilled hope to the galaxy, just like Obi-Wan said he would, not like the Disney movies where he gave up on the Jedi, or even the whole galaxy for that matter. The character you see in those movies is not Luke. Luke isn't a quitter. He's not a pessimist. He's a leader. He's inspirational. And he's always there for his friends in times of need. Another character is Han Solo. He's introduced to us in A New Hope as a loner, a man who cares only for himself and nobody else. But by the end of Return of the Jedi, that all turns around when he finally finds friends he can trust and a true love to spend the rest of his life with. And that's exactly what he does in the Expanded Universe. Han is a devoted husband and father to Leia and their kids. He loves his family above all else. In the new movies, Han turns out to be a selfish deadbeat dad who ran out on his family when things get tough. It's a complete 180 from the character that we saw from Return of the Jedi. Now, another thing the EU does is it rewards its readers. Attention to detail when it comes to continuity has never been done at such a level as when it was performed by the expanded universe. Avid readers will constantly be rewarded for their diligence as comics, novels, video games, and even children's books share connections throughout the entire series, making it almost a flawless, continuous story. And though it has its minor flaws, it's still the best overall story in continuity out there, period. That's what the EU does. It respects and rewards its readers. And that's the best reason you should give it a try. Long live the expanded universe.
Long live the expanded universe. And thank you, as always, Matt Wilkins. Such a good friend. In fact, I got to reach out and see how he's doing. I haven't talked to him in a while. And just to check in, say hello, all of that. But I digress from that. Love you, Matt. Thank you so much for allowing me to share this video always. And if you guys have not subscribed to him, he has pretty interesting content going on there. Not only Star Wars, but games and all that. Check him out. And you can always go you can always go back for his review of the EU and his reread. And he's now moving through the TV shows or the cartoon shows. So very good content there. Well, to preserve George Lucas era of Star Wars, something we all love and adore. So with that being said, go over there and subscribe. Say hello. Tell him that I sent you. So with this being said, if you do have the source book, the New Jedi Order source book, and I wish they made a part 2 because there's so going on after Star by Star. This is the schedule. Before we get into this, we are talking about the Yuuzhan Vong Psychological Torture. And then we are going to get into the final assault begins. So it doesn't necessarily get into Anakin's final stance yet. That will be for next week. Okay, slowly moving towards that. So we have the final assault begins, the Battle of Boreleas, the Battle of Risi, and going through there. Next week will be Fate of Anakin Solo. And basically Jaina's team, Jason's team, and the Battle of Coruscant. So those two will coincide together. And yes, the More Civilized Age is on tonight. Okay, good. Thank you for sharing. I was wondering about that. And then we will end with, no, this is not the ending. Then we'll get into the Fall of Coruscant and the twins divided. And then we'll get into the epilogue, Coruscant Lost, the Solo Twins, and Sovereign Law's victory. So those are scheduled. Those are within the next 3 weeks. And then after we finish the source book as a source to give these events and stuff, we are going to talk about Anakin Solo as a character. It's still going to be part of the New Jedi Order topics that I have scheduled for the channel through the next coming months. And that will give me time to get to the next book and pull out the state of the state of the galaxy and all of that. So I could pull that out and get that organized for you, since it's, not going to be something I can come back and share through a source book. I have to make my own source from the sources I have, which is cool. I may discover things that I didn't know. And I'll see how I'm going to design that. It's not going to sound exactly how the source book here does it. And that's okay, because it's all about giving you guys, or sharing with you guys, how I research and stuff like that, I guess you could say. All right. So Anakin Solo, yes, he will be a pause between this and, me doing my research, and we'll talk about him as a character. And I think it's very important. Question: do you think that what was it again? Do you think Anakin Solo was a wasted character? Do you think Anakin Solo was a wasted character? That's the question that you guys can think about here. Considering if you watched HoloNet's research, and it's a 4, 5, 6-part research. They do say that George never asked for Anakin Solo to be killed off. That's revealed, however they killed him off. So that is something to think about. Do you think that they prematurely killed him off? Is he a wasted character, or did they go ahead and give him awesome character art, which helps set up everything going forward, right? It did. So that's just something to ponder. Most overlooked of the Solo siblings. I agree. Let's see here. No, I think it was perfect to set him up to the unknowing as the protagonist. It makes his death that much more jarring. All right. Okay, so with that being said, of course, like I said, I love this here, so I'm never going to change that. Never going to change that. We are starting star by star, so everything is as is. We are now finally getting to Borlace and Reese and all that. But I wanted to share something before, and I should have moved it up further. So I thought there was more than this. I thought there was another hand, and if I'm missing a hand, let me know. But here we have, and these are in the books, especially the hardcover books, not necessarily the paperback. These are in the hardcover books. So we have the beginning. There's no hand there. And it just kind of gives you details of everything in the galaxy and stuff. And then we start having the hand coming and opening, grasping towards the core. And then by time, star by star, and going forward, it is grabbing, pinching the core in its claws. Isn't that fucking brilliant? Highlighting in this dark gray, the invasion of the Vong on the galaxy, where they went, their path, and it looks like a Yuuzhan Vong hand or claw. And as it progresses, finally, it grasps the core. Fucking amazing. Yes, it is awesome. It is. And I was trying to see if there was, I have a feeling, but I could be wrong, that there's another hand and it's at a different stage than the one in the middle. And this right here is when we have the fall of Coruscant, all of that. It's crazy. And so I just wanted to share this because I thought it was brilliant what they did with highlighting the areas of the invasion of the Vong. So crazy. Anakin using the oneness was badass. Sure was. I agree. All right, so let's get into this. I just wanted to share that. It's fucking amazing. It's great. All right, so Vong Psychological Torture and the final assault begins. Let's see here. Who's in Hero's trial, Dromo shows Han the sabacc cards and said Anakin's future is potentially dangerous and unknown. Yes. Oh my God. Yeah. That fucking gave me chills. I remember that too. I remember that. And when no matter if you're reading or you're listening to an unabridged version, and I think it might be in the abridged version. I could be wrong. I haven't went back and visited in a while. So it just gives you chills. It's like, it's crazy. And Han's like, I don't believe in that kind of stuff, and of course, typical Corellian fashion, don't tell me the odds, basically, right? All right, so let's get into this. Okay, so we're going to talk about the Vong psychological torture. My boy Anakin became a beautiful super scion. Yes. All right, the breaking. The psychological torture. Although Yuuzhan Vong shapers have advanced means of bending a subject's will, the other castes have their own ways of accomplishing more or less the same task with slightly different results. The warrior caste repeatedly subjects a victim to a near-death experience so that again and again he faces a horrible demise before he is snatched from the jaws of death. After enough such conditioning, the victim becomes incapable of resisting the Yuuzhan Vong. That's fucking crazy. We are going to get into all their torture techniques coming up, because when we get into Traitor and all that, it's going to reveal a lot more. And we're going to talk about even the characters like Ahasharad Het or Darth Krayt, who went through the same type of torture. And we're going to link all of that together, because I think it's important to share that, you know, this is not the only time people from this galaxy has encountered the Vong. They were infiltrating for a very long time. They had set people in to explore, to get to know and see the push and pull of the galaxy, to figure out what are the weakest points, how they can come in in the invasion, how they can deal, what this government, what the people believe in, so they can manipulate and conquer, basically. Very crazy tactics, very well. And, you know, it's funny that, you know, at Disney Star Wars shows, like, there's no such thing. There's no tactical, strategic characters in Star Wars until they put in Thrawn, and he's more or less a Star Trek character. I mean, the shit that people tell me on Twitter to bash the EU. I don't know. I don't know if it's a bash. Sent you the maps, OG. Okay, I'll go check it out. I don't know if it's bashing or what, but it was very, very odd. Very odd. Let me see here. Let me scroll down real quick. Oh, her here. Okay, so yeah, these two are the same. Destiny's Way. Oh, I see. Thank you so much. I see one's a little closer. Okay, cool. Now I can add a little bit more. I knew that I was missing one. You know, you have that feeling in the Force, eh? And that you're missing something. Thank you so much. Now I can complete. Now I can complete it. Thank you so much. Thank you. I knew I was missing one. All right, so back to the topic at hand. So how they torture, the breaking. This is only one way we're sharing, that's being shared to us. There's so many ways. We do see in the beginning, is it Miko? I think it's Miko, his name is, that was tortured that way. So we're getting more into that. Typically, the Yuuzhan Vong warrior caste confronts a victim with a creature bred and trained to aid them in torture. For instance, Miko Regalia faced a Yamask while one of the Jedi in Anakin Solo Strike Force was tormented by a Voxen. These guys are fucking wicked, right? They are wicked. Yeah, Miko Regalia. Yeah. Yeah, I knew I got that right when I realized too that what I read here. Helpless and facing imminent death, the victim is at mercy of the Yuuzhan Vong, who are the only ones in a position to call off the creature and thus save the victim. So we're not only dealing with past torture that we've seen with Miko, now they have a new creature, a new technique to use. That's the Voxen. That's what sets the Jedi in motion, and Anakin leads the strike team to kill the Voxen Queen. Because they're focused. The Yuuzhan Vong know that the Jedi are their opponents. And they need to defeat and get rid of these opponents as quick as they can. How can they do that? Because, you know, the Jedi are a force that they never really dealt with before. Well, them in their time, considering that their home world was force sensitive and Zonama Zikat is force sensitive. You know, the secondary world are the child planet, I guess you could say. Once we get there, we'll talk more about Zonama Zikat. And that they're cut off from the Force because of their lifestyle. Right? So this generation, like, this is like, we're talking about generations out from the fall of the Vong, I guess you can say, in their own galaxy and how they flee. Right? And so they're trying to find ways to overcome and defeat the Jedi, and they come up with the Voxen as well. Because not all Jedi will succumb to what Miko succumb to. You could say, was he weak-minded, or was he not as strong in the Force? Who knows? We can debate that, because not all Jedi are cut from the same cloth, which I find is very brilliant under George Lucas era, because it would be so boring if they're cut from the same cloth and had all the same abilities and the same mind frame and all this other stuff. It would not make a diverse group of people and beings within the order. You have Corran Horn that can't do telekinesis, right? You have Luke Skywalker that doesn't have the full ability of force healing, but you have Seagull that does. It makes for an interesting dynamics and makes for like interesting characters. Star Wars Grand says Tentacle is in it as well. I don't remember her being mentioned in the previous books. I wouldn't have noticed what's listed to. Oh, she's YJK's listen party. Yes. Yeah. And I know you love Courtship of Princess Leia, and why Young Jedi Knights brings in the child of Tennille Joe, and Princess Isolde and stuff like that. So I know that is something that is very interesting to you. And I'm glad that you're able to join us when you can. Kay didn't have a problem. He kind of enjoyed the embrace of pain. Damn heathen. He's like, oh, this feels so good. It's massaging my back. Isn't that crazy? It's massaging my back. Of course, I had to say something crazy like that. Priya says, someone else in Jedi trial. I leave that out since Scran's almost there. Ah, there you go. Yeah. Yeah, it's hard not to give spoilers here if you haven't gone through this yet and stuff. And then once you get into Young Jedi Knights, which complements this, because of course it's a historical timeline that we're moving through, right? Going back in time with these characters that are younger, Anakin not necessarily being in the Young Jedi Knights yet. Yeah, so I mean, it's amazing. All right, so let's crack on. All right, where was I at? A Yuuzhan Vong torture can make an immediate check to set the level of intensity for this confrontation. If the creature, the victim is confronted with, succeeds on an intimidate check. Oh, this we're going through like the play thingy, so discard that. Once the torture begins, the victim is forced each round to make a will save. Okay, so this is all that. All right. So with that, again, it goes into character. Are they strong-willed? Are they strong in the Force? How are they going to deal with such a torture, right? Cade would have gotten along with Shido Shai. I agree. And so it goes all back to me talking about how diverse and distinct the Jedi Order is with their characters and their will and their gifts and all of that, their strengths and their weaknesses, all of that. So the breaking aboard the Yuuzhan Vong's frigate Exquisite Death, the members of Anakin's strike team endure the breaking, a psychological torture technique employed by the Yuuzhan Vong. Miko Regalia, the Jedi Knight killed at Halska 4 at the onset of the Yuuzhan Vong invasion, had endured a similar torture as he was repeatedly subjected to mock sacrifices to the Preterites Vong's Yamask war coordinator. On Yuuzhan 4, Tahira Valia had undergone a more sophisticated version of this same treatment. The Yuuzhan Vong takes their experiments one step further by tormenting the Jedi with a vicious voxen, but the Jedi have a defense ready, the battle meld. The battle meld. And so we see that in the beginning with the Solo kids bringing up an ancient technique that was seen before, and then also, was talked about in the Thrawn Heir to the Empire as well, the battle meld. And in a sense, or, and I think it's very interesting how, we have the movies that sets the foundation. There's a lot the movies can't tell or show or grow with. But when you have opportunities to explore the movies through novels and what have you, we do have the opportunity to see what can happen, what other things can Jedi do, what other things can these people, these beings of the universe can do, what species are there, how many planets, all of that. It's a beautiful, experience and setup in Star Wars. All right, so the breaking. And so again, this is just one method. We haven't been introduced technically yet to the other torture devices. Battle meditation. Yes, battle meditation. Yes. Let's see here. Let me take a drink. We still have Cringe Factor to go through, so we might go over a little bit because we are getting into the next thing that I want to talk about is the final assault begins. So we know that Anakin with Luke Skywalker planned this because it was very important to take down the Voxen, right? It's really important because these creatures detect them so precisely, I guess you could say. And on top of that, they have, like, they could spit venom at you, and there's all kinds of things that between the breeds that they cloned from, bred from, I guess you can say, it makes for a dangerous creature that gives the Jedi struggles, and it's a deadly, I guess you could say, a deadly creature. All right, so let me see. I was getting comfortable. I'm shifting around. All right, let's see here. So the final assault begins with Chief of State Borsk Felia, support of the Jedi, and Vicky Sheshes, and we will talk about her coming soon. Oh, I can't stand that bitch. I can't stand her whatsoever. Oh, when I first read through this and I got to know who she is and stuff and what she goes through and all this other stuff. Oh my God. And her final fall, I was like, yes, I can't wait to get into that. Let's see here. Voxen are basically the Vong version of the Sith Terentitic. Did I say that right? All right. So Sheth's subsequent failed assassination plot, War Master Savanlaw decides the time has come to make good on his threats to destroy the Telfaglios refugee convoy. Yuuzhan Vong ships move in on the fleet only to discover that it's well guarded. The defense include for the flotilla of ships from the New Republic led by Garm Bel Iblis, Wedge Antilles, and Luke Skywalker. Man, heavy hitters right there, don't you think? The Yuuzhan Vong find themselves facing Rogue Squadron, Wraith Squadron, Han Solo, and Leia Organa Solo aboard the Millennium. I'm trying to talk faster than I'm thinking and stuff. You know how that goes. And then the Millennium Falcon, Kip's Dozen, Saba 17's Wild Knights, Corran Horn, and every Jedi who can handle a starfighter. Again, heavy hitters right there. They mean business. So if you haven't read through this yet or haven't got to Star by Star, you are in for a treat. This is such a well-written book. It's emotional. I'll tell you, it's going to pull some heartstrings and all this other stuff. But man, there are some major players, heavy hitters, major events going on in here. It's going to have you at the edge of your seat. With all the Jedi working towards common purpose, saving the lives of thousands of innocent beings, Luke can sense that the Force has focused in them and through them in a way that has never before experienced. He has never before experienced. The fight is vicious, but the Yuuzhan Vong never really have a chance. Kip Duran even captures a Yamask, a bit dead one, and Danny Kui and Seagal to study, called to Coruscant to speak to the Senate regarding the Yuuzhan Vong history and atrocities. Luke Skywalker finds himself lambasted by Senator Vicky Shesh and her supporters. His political opponents demand that the Jedi and the various rogue New Republic officers helped them cease their reckless defense of the refugee convoys. So imagine your own governing officials get pissed at you for saving refugees, defending them from destruction or becoming prisoners. Imagine that. You know, it's you see this big push and pull, and the government giving up on their people. And you have someone behind the scenes masterminding that, and that's Vicky Sesh, or whatever her name is. All right. The Jedi Master gently refuses. Let me see. Did I look at the sport? Is his political opponent's demand? Okay. Yeah, Jedi Master gently refuses, and in yet another stunning move, Chief of State Borsk Velia not only agrees with him, but also commits the New Republic Defense Force to working with the Jedi to protect the galaxy as best as they can, realizing that the military will follow Generals Antilles and Bill Iblis, regardless of what the Senate wants. Senator Shesh can only back down. And again, there's more to that woman. And I fucking like Borsk Velia. I don't care for her. He's like, whatever. But she basically gives him the run for his money on being controversial. She's basically she's here committing treason. And we'll get more into that as we go further into the story. Even in a galaxy far, far away, politics get in the way. Correct. And this is the very reason why Coruscant falls. But, you know, that's how it goes. So the Battle of Borlaeus. The battle over the refuge fleet convinces War Master Saban Law that the Jedi have committed a grave tactical error, that they have let saving lives become more important than winning the war. And see that there's a disconnect with the Vong. The Vong think differently than the people of the galaxy. They think death is a way to their gods, right? Where life for the people of the galaxy, the Jedi, all of that, is more value in a sense. The Vong are always reshaping themselves, and their sacrifice is what gets them closer to God, closer to their gods. They have let saving lives become more important than winning the war, with sentimentally clouding the Jedi's judgment. The War Master decides that the time is right to strike the core worlds. Activating his Vilips, Saban Law instructs the battle fleet at Vortex to commence with the attack on Coruscant. So here we go. The War Master's part of the plan calls for his own fleet to strike at Borlaeus. Poor Borlaeus. Like, how many times does that place have a battle? Like, going back to the timeline of the X-Wings and stuff like that. All right. A battle he wins easily. During the fight, however, Saban Law's Yumas detects unusual gravitic fluctuations, normally interfering with communications, guessing that the Jedi, in this case, Danny, Kui, and Segal, have deduced how Yuuzhan Vong Yumas communicate with Dovin Basils. Saban Law orders the Yuuzhan Vong to provide additional protection for all Yumas in future engagements, and to destroy them if it appears they are in danger of capture. So they're catching on. They're like, oh shit. You know, the Jedi are discovering how everything functions, how everything works in our communications, and all of this very interesting stuff going on here, right? So the Battle of Risi. The Yuuzhan Vong moved towards Coruscant in a classic pincher strategic. Let me go ahead and share. It's right here. It's the very last. It's the third one. So pincher. Notice that pincher. The hand is pinching down on these areas. And I wish I had a bigger picture to zoom in on so you guys can see what's going on there. Again, like I said, this is very interesting. It's very clever how, you know, Lucasfilm in themselves, this, you know, and their concept artists created this invasion map, and it looks like the Vong hand. Okay. All right. So let me see where I was at. From Borlase to okay. So the Yuuzhan Vong moved towards Coruscant in a classic pincher strategy. One battle fleet strikes at Coruscant from Borlase and the other from Risi. Because the New Republic expects the Yuuzhan Vong to strike the Bilbringi is a very important place if you didn't know that, from their base on Vortex. Risi is only lightly defended. Risi is considered so safe, in fact, that Luke Skywalker had questioned the booster Tarek's keep his ship Errant Venture waiting in the system, which is extremely close to the Eclipse base. Woo-wee. So, you know, we got some shit going on here. You miscalculated, right? Miscalculation. Tarek is still waiting at Risi when the Yuuzhan Vong fleet arrives, and he barely escapes to bring the news to Luke Skywalker at Eclipse. This information prompts Han and Leia Organa Solo to take the Millennium Falcon on a scouting mission along the edge of the core worlds in the gas nebula known as the Black Bantha, a little known route used by smugglers traveling to Risi. Amazing how Han can use his past life, not his past life, but his past experience when he was a smuggler to help aid in this, right? Let's see where I was at. Okay. They then soon discovered that Booster's encounter with the Yuuzhan Vong fleet had not been coincidence. The Yuuzhan Vong are definitely preparing for an attack on the core worlds and most likely Coruscant itself. The New Republic diverts ships relieving Borlaeus. Reinforcements join up with the small task force of the Jedi pilots in a violent but brief battle. The combined forces destroy the Yuuzhan Vong fleet at Risi. Now Savan Law has only half the force he needs for the attack against Coruscant. And best of all, Saba 17 has captured a live Yomask. Eloin Yomask. Yeah, so there we go. Moving towards the core. Attack on the core worlds. Moving towards Coruscant. So now, next week, as I said, if you guys have any questions or want to point out anything or want to talk about how they are moving towards Coruscant and all this other stuff, feel free to say that in the chat. We can expand on that some more. But next week, we are getting the fate of Anakin Solo, Jaina and Jason's teams, and the Battle of Coruscant. And then we will also get into the treachery of Vicky Shesh. So that will all be next week. Heavy hitting here, you guys. Heavy hitting. We haven't got to the fall of Coruscant just yet, but we're getting into the heavy shit now. We're getting in. Shit's getting real now. Like if you didn't think it wasn't before, it is getting real now because we do see, you know, the split of the government, you know, is not favoring this. The Vong are taking advantage of that. And even from the past, from their initial start of the invasion, they have been taking advantage of the split governments, basically, and people who are basically their spies and stuff, like Vicky Shesh. And you know, you can only think if they were united against this invasion, instead of thinking about themselves and only their planets in general, it probably would have been slightly different. Maybe we can only do what ifs, but we can base it upon what we're seeing here now. If there was more unity to fight against the Vong, then it could have been a whole different outcome, right? A whole different outcome. They make their villains look like anyone they hate. Maybe we'll see a Trump lookalike. Oh, you're talking about the Disney Star Wars? Is that what you're talking about? All right. So with that being said, woo-wee, next week, have your snacks ready. Have your questions and your because you know the topic already. So if there's things that you want to contribute to the talk, have that ready. All of that, because like I said, once we get to the fall of Coruscant, that's going to be a heavy one right there, as well as Anakin Solo's death. Those are going to be some heavy hitters right there that we can discuss here. And from there going on, the state of the Skywalker family, Jaina and Jason losing their brother, you know, and all this will come into play. And of course, Han and Leia's reaction, which I probably want to go ahead and record a clip from that, because I believe the unabridged version, so in the books and all that, she is holding Ben Skywalker when she finds out the news. That's what I believe what happened. I have to go back. Like, I'm going back to revisit. I haven't got that yet in Star by Star, but I'm almost positive she's holding baby Ben when she discovers her son Anakin dies. She feels it in the Force, you know, and man, you know, it's a tragedy. It's like to see Leia hear or read her reaction. Holy shit. That's something that will really pull at your heartstrings and stuff. I have 60 beautiful people in listening, participating. Thank you so much. 61, it went up. Hello. And thank you guys so much for supporting. Become a channel member, you guys. We are going through the Young Jedi Knights. We're only on book 2, so we're just barely beginning. And this, again, is part of the historical timeline, which leads up to this. So come join us. Done driving. Now I can chat. Well, thank you for driving safe and listening in while you're driving. All right. So here is the claw grasping towards the core. Holy crap. Such good stuff right there. All right. Let me go ahead and I took myself out. I hate when I do that. All right. So Pura says, will you cry for a real Skywalker like Theory does for a fake one? Oh, Jake's back. Oh my gosh. You know, I did cry when I first read it. I did have tears. I did fucking have tears. Hey, I'm a woman, you know, with hormones and shit, you know, as a mom feeling sorry for Leia and even Han. But yes, I will shed a tear or two for the real Star Wars character, not no Jake Skywalker from The Mandalorian. You know, so I mean, yeah, you know, I'm not fake like that. You know, I can distinguish between the two. All right, so let's get into cringe factor. But before we do, let's go ahead and play another video and get ourselves prepared for that. So if you need to take a quick break, feel free to do that. So let's see here. Let's go
Jedi
to this.
is something that came a little later. When we started building Jedis, we had a lot of Jedis, and we needed more and more Jedis. As we were doing them toward the end, we ended up with a lot of Jedis that looked like people that worked at ILM, you know, with these short little haircuts and looked like they stepped out from behind a computer. And so I was saying we have to get more exotic Jedis. And so we only have so much resources to do these things with, but I do have Twi'leks because we use them quite a bit in other areas in the Senate and as background action. So I have a sort of a wardrobe and a setup of certain kinds of characters. So it was a way of reinventing some of those characters. And I had realized that we had a comic book that has a Twi'lek in it that is a Jedi. There's a whole series actually of her. And I said, well, why don't we put her in this? I mean, she's a comic character, but we'll just fit her in and have her be a background character because that's exotic. That's how the Twi'lek Jedi ended up in the backgrounds of these shots, was to try to use some of the work and effort that the guys in the comic book world had put into things and characters they created.
All right, so let's get into this next topic. If you haven't figured it out, here we go.
So uncivilized.
So uncivilized. And thank you again, Screen Rant, for being another contributor to Cringe Factor. I don't know how I don't know why I did it that way. Hopefully you guys like that and got a laugh from it. I don't know, but yeah, I'm just being goofy now. But what is this about? So if you see my thumbnail with the cartoon character that I use on my thumbnail, looks kind of like me, I guess you could say, and she is having a thought or talking. So what's in the thoughts or speaking bubble is basically the cringe factor topic. If you guys have not figured that out yet, that's what that is about. So what we're talking about is Yaddle's death in Disney Star Wars and how it is significant, how her death saved Star Wars in general. So let's see what this person says here within the context of their quote unquote research and stuff like that. And this is Robert Wood, which is funny because I do have a cousin. He's like he's my dad's first cousin. So I would probably in traditional way call him uncle. His name is Robert Wood or Bob Wood. But this in fact is no relations whatsoever, because my uncle, my dad's cousin, first cousin, is native, has black hair, dark complected, all of that. So that is not the same person. So you guys know, and I would probably fucking disown them in general for this. And let's see here. All right, so let's get on with this. So what do you guys know about Yaddle? What do you guys know about her in the greater Star Wars lore? So Grumpy Old Ninja is here. What's up? Exotic. Yes. George Lucas loved his exotic species. He is the creator of Twi'leks, right? He loves these exotic creatures. He's the one who brought one to the movies, starting with not A New Hope, starting with Return of the Jedi. And here you go. Become a channel member. Disowning family members. Yaddle's death equals Dooku's promotion to Sith Lord. We'll get to that. This is Disney Star Wars we're talking about. Yaddle went from a martyr to a Jake-style death to make Dooku evil. Not that, he was feeling disenfranchised from the Jedi Order and was manipulated by Sidious. That taking Palpatine or Sidious out of the equation for even Count Dooku really regresses the characters. It's unbelievable. Actually, it's by this point, it is now believable that Disney will fuck up these characters. I'm just saying. True canon Yaddle had a better story. Sure did. She gave her life to save Anakin and others. All right. All I know is Yaddle is a Yoda female, and I fear Disney will make her immortal. Yoda, yes, queen. Yes, queen. Yes, queen. There you go. I think that's better, right? All right. So let's move on. In the dark twist, Disney Star Wars just gave new information about the death of the iconic Jedi, and while of an iconic Jedi, not to downplay her as a character, just because she's Yoda species and she's a female, was she really iconic to you guys? Or was her death, sacrifice, iconic? Not downplaying the character, the original character, but think about it. And while the new revelation makes them even more heroic than fans know, it also makes their death even more heartbreaking, particularly because they could have avoided it if they were even slightly less heroic. What? Particularly because they could have avoided it if they were even slightly less heroic. Okay? So it's going to be interesting what we get into all of this. That's why I'm reading the whole article. In today's Disney Star Wars Jedi Knights number 5 from Mark Guggingham and Madbik Massa Musa Bakov. I'm sorry if I butchered this. No intentions whatsoever. Luis Guerrero and Clayton Cowlis. Disney Star Wars fans witness a previously unseen mission carried out by Jedi Master Yaddle and Jedi Knight Sierra Longa. Longa? The events of this mission gives new meaning to Yaddle's death at Count Dooku's hands, originally shown in Disney Star Wars Tales of the Jedi. So, not to discredit you, if not to bring in any controversy, have you guys watched that Yaddle's death in Tales of the Jedi? Like, this is another appropriation of a classical Star Wars name, and it hurts the value of researching the comics that are that bear this title. And even New Jedi Order, when I search up New Jedi Order, brings up a lot of Rey Palpatine shit. So this is just another way of making hard the original material hard to search up. And it makes it point towards the Disney Star Wars lore. See what's going on here? So with that being said, have you guys watched, or you know of the story? I know of it. It just wasn't worth for me to watch because it's fake Star Wars and it's not worth my time. However, when I do want to do a compare and contrast and know a little bit more so I know what I'm talking about, I will do the research. I will look into and do the research. Folk Tales of the Jedi are faux Tales of the Jedi. You are right. I doubt Disney fans even know the character exists until not Jedi Tales come out. Yeah, Yaddle's Disney's death. He's sharing a clip here. It didn't want to come up. All right, so let's move on. So here's the comic here, I guess you could say. Already so many have suffered for what you call order. Then let me give you peace, Master Yaddle. That was stupid. It's like, I don't know. This reminds me of a Disney shield conversation when they're talking to EU fans. We're addressing something and then they say something off the hook that doesn't really coincide with what you're talking about. Oh, you're just crying. Kind of reminds me of that, right? It's funny. The comic reveals that Yaddle previously saved Count Dooku's life during the early days of his corruption. So she saved his life in his early days of corruption, which had no bearing to him whatsoever. That, maybe these Jedi care about him and stuff. By all means, no, it didn't. There was no impression of. I mean, whatever. It's Disney Star Wars, right? Making it possible for him to kill her later in life. That doesn't make any sense. So let's read this whole thing here. So he wants revenge on her for saving his life. That's what I'm getting here. So the comic reveals that Yaddle previously saved Count Dooku's life during the early days of his corruption, making it possible for him to kill her later in life. So he wanted to die then? Is that what this Wood guy is saying? Because this shows that he wanted revenge, because it says making it possible for him to kill her later, which is sounding like he wanted revenge for her saving his life. What the heck's going on here? It's like, I don't know. All right, so let's go here. So Grogu gonna avenge his mother and defeat Dooku. Y'all remember when they said she was Grogu's mom? Yes, that her and Yoda had a secret love child. Yeah. Oh my God. Let's go back. Let me go back to that window here. In fact, it's even hinted that Yaddle sensed Dooku would kill her, but was unwilling to go against the will of the Force by avoiding her fate. Okay. What do you guys think about that? Oh, I'm not going to go against the will of the Force. I'm going to be killed to save him. But you remember that the Force gives you only one scenario of the future? It's funny that Disney is going against and away from visions of the future, the lore behind that you only see one version of the future, that it can be any one scenario in a sense, right? But all of a sudden they're going to believe in one single truth, but the Force gives you variations of the truth, I guess you could say, if you want to say it that way. Lucas Gerson says TCW and Disney Doku is just a flanderization of the original character, a pathetic Saturday morning show villain. Shippers, they ruined everything. They do. They do. All right, going back to this. So Yaddle saved Count Dooku, ensuring her own death. Did Yaddle know she was sealing her own fate? Well, you just shared here that she does. All right, so let's go here. In the issue, Yaddle and Sierra oversee discussion. Wait till we get into this right here. You're going to find this crazy. This goes back to the High Republic stuff. Sierra oversees discussions between our Acolyte stuff. Discussions between the Trade Federation and the Gellanter Corporation, with Doku working behind the scenes to maintain Palpatine's control over the former. After Wookiee mercenaries, I went straight to Wikipedia. Wookiee mercenaries attack Doku and is captured and tortured for information. So the Wookiees capture Doku and torture him. Like Wookiee mercenaries attack Doku and torture for information. That kind of sounds off for the Wookiee culture. Now, there are bad Wookiees. We know that. And maybe these mercenaries are those bad Wookiees. But to me, that kind of sounds off for Wookiee culture. Correct me if I'm wrong, but just to me, that sounds kind of off. But anyways, Sierra Longa questions whether the Jedi should get involved, since doing so may endanger their place as meditators. Yeah. All right, I'll read that again. The Longa character questions whether the Jedi should get involved, since doing so may endanger their place as meditators. So they are meditating. Remember how they said that, like in the Acolyte, and even in the High Republic lore, that there are Jedi that just sit and meditate and that's all they do and stuff. So they're saying, as meditators, if they get up and take action from what they received from the Force, could that be bad? Could that be bad? Yaddle replies that she can sense the Force. She can sense the Force wants Doku to live, declaring, "I cannot deny the Force. I would sooner die." But is it her? Is it her, the one who decides to put that in motion? Right? Like, this is not making any sense, because you're saying, oh, the Force wants him to live. But if the Force wants him to live, then he will live without her interaction. Again, the will of the Force. It's going to play out the way the Force needs it to play out. So why does she think that she's a part of this? I don't know. It's like, this is... Can you make sense of this for me, please? Mike Cassius, hello. How are you doing? It's okay. We are now in Cringe Factor wrapping up the last portion of Caf Chat. So you're going to have to catch from the beginning. And I think maybe it's topics that you want to listen to. All right. Let's see here. Bad Wookiee sounds like a YouTube name. Bad Wookiee. Darth Wookiee. Yaddle literally saw Doku meet with Palpatine, and instead of alerting the Jedi Order about his betrayal, she starts to fight him and dies, which was clearly not a smart idea. Like I said, I haven't watched or seen the whole thing. I just researched it and stuff. So you have a point there. Why didn't she alert? Why did she take it upon herself? She could have went and alerted the council without any interactions, because if she sees that the Force wants Dooku to live, he will still live, right? I mean, no matter scenario you take, if it's the will of the Force, it's going to happen the way the Force wants. So this is turning out to be a screwy story. Bad Wookiee, funky Wookiee. Oh crap, it is. All right, let's go. Let's crack on with this. All right. So I'm not going to read this right here, but anyways, maybe I should. What? And then Yaddle says, "You asked me why we should aid Dooku." And then she says, "Destiny. Destiny is the answer." Okay. Whose destiny? I don't know. Okay, so she doesn't know. Then why do they need to take action? See where this gets all funky? The Force is my guide. It tells me to follow my instincts, to trust my feelings, so I do. But then you don't know who it's supposed to, like whose destiny this belongs to, who is supposed to interact. I don't trust Dooku. There is a disturbance surrounding him like a shroud, something troubling that brings a chill to my soul. Then why don't you talk to the council about that, sweetheart? But I cannot deny the Force. All right. And then he says, I would sooner die. Okay. No matter what, we must save Dooku. Why do they need to save Dooku? Why? And why don't they just alert the council? See how screwy this sounds? They are making the Jedi, through even a character like Yaddle, who has a significant arc in the EU, the original EU, they're making it look like they are corrupt and corrupt. Yaddle and Sira are successful in saving Dooku, who arrogantly states that he is working with a new force in the galaxy that will mean that, quote unquote, will mean the end of the Jedi Order. So after they save him, she's still alive. She doesn't alert the council. Despite his dark promise, Yaddle insists preserving life is never regretful, whatever the cost may prove to be. And from her attitude, it seems that Yaddle senses Dooku will do something terrible, and a flash forward to her murder when she's considering how to rescue Dooku's suggests she may, well, since she's involved. Okay, so this doesn't fucking make sense. This is the cringe factor here. This is the bastardization of Yaddle's character even more, and also the PT characters, making them look insignificant and corrupt. Why didn't she tell the council? And they're only doing this because she dies. I don't know why they're doing this. Yeah, make it make sense. Yes, make it make sense. Y'all may not know, but reading comics is what OG did in the early days of Caf Chat. Yes, I did. And we went over Yaddle's death in the comic being Stig. All to prop up Rey's order. Holy heck. So this is Cringe Factor. What do you guys think? We have 17 beautiful souls listening, participating, watching, what have you. Thank you for supporting the channel. Hit the like button, subscribe if you have not, and share the stream out so others can watch this. How ridiculous this Cringe Factor article is about Yaddle and what she decides. Again, and remember Moondy's appearance in Acolyte. This is the same thing, taking these established characters from the George Lucas era and making them total idiots. Now she is to blame for Dooku, I guess you could say. I don't know. Imagine trying to make sense about something that never made sense to begin with, right? So what do you guys think? What do you guys think? Let me remove that. That concludes Cringe Factor. So let's, I think Soul Assassin shared. Let's cleanse our palettes. You shared with me, Yaddle, like a quick video of Yaddle's arc, right? In the chat, Soul Assassin? Not in the chat here, in the DMs on Twitter. I thought you did. Like I said, I should have gotten this ready to go so we can cleanse our palette before I found. I don't know how long this is, but why not? It's 7 minutes. Hopefully I don't get a strike from this, but I think that this would be a palette cleanser here. Hold on. I used the Lore Master video, which fine, it is what it is. And we're gonna cleanse. No, we're not doing this. I hate when another video pops up. There we go. Let me do this again. I'm struggling over here, you guys. Just have patience with me. Just have patience. There we go. All right. Dude, you're supposed to stop. Thank you. We are going to do a palette cleanser, like I said, to review or go over or watch the real Yaddle and what happened. So let me go ahead and pull this up, and then we are going to conclude Caf Chat. And tonight, I believe Casual Rage is going to happen again. I know he had a break last week, and for whatever reason something was going on in his life that had him on a different track, so he couldn't produce the show. So join us for Casual Rage, but we are going to go ahead and do a palette cleanser here.
Serving as a Jedi Master during the final decades of the Galactic Republic, Yaddle was likely the only one of the same species as Yoda to serve in the Jedi Order around this time period. While her being of the same race as Yoda definitely made her stand out among the others and masters in the temple, it was her early-on struggle and deep motherly-like connection to the younglings that made her forever remembered and beloved in the Jedi Order following her premature death. About 300 years before the start of the Clone Wars, a young Padawan Yaddle and her master were sent to a war-torn planet that was under the control of a brutal warlord. Hoping to liberate the innocent of the planet, the two Jedi attempted to overthrow the warlord, but ultimately were overwhelmed by his large and battle-hardened army. During the Jedi's last battle, Yaddle witnessed her master get decapitated right in front of her by the enemy, with her being captured soon after. The next couple of nights, Yaddle was bound and tortured for information, but her will and trust in the Force allowed her to remain silent. She eventually became a common slave to the warlord, joining in with the other slaves of the world she and her master failed to free. Years later, and the warlord of the planet decided to conquer another world, and because of this, he had Yaddle buried deep underground beneath multiple boulders, as he feared she would escape without him personally on the planet, but still wanted her alive as a future hostage. With the last boulder put in place overhead, Yaddle began her centuries of confinement. Over the years, the very people she initially came to free started to treat her as a beast, cruelly mocking her whenever they fed her. As more and more time had passed, Yaddle became a legend on the planet, with her being simply referred to as the One Below among the populace above ground. During the centuries-long confinement, Yaddle relied solely on the Force for both her physical and mental survival, achieving unity with the Force over time. However, one night, large earthquakes ravaged the planet and caused unimaginable destruction on the surface. These destructive earthquakes cleared a small path of escape from Yaddle's underground imprisonment, allowing her to finally see the sunlight for the first time in centuries. Despite the very people on the planet being her jailers and treating her like a beast for many years, Yaddle forgave them and helped the people recover from the destruction caused by the earthquakes. Once the chaos settled, Yaddle decided that rather than return to the Jedi Temple, that she would remain on the planet and help the natives rebuild from both the pillaging from the warlord earlier and the destruction caused from the earthquakes. And help them rebuild she did, with years of hard work passing, the planet eventually becoming prosperous. One day, however, the warlord that had conquered the world centuries ago went on to send his eldest son to reclaim the planet. The son came eager to take everything from the planet like his father before, but this time there was someone to stop him, Yaddle. Initially, she warned the wannabe warlord to stop and leave with his life, but he of course refused her mercy, and so a fight commenced between the two. The fight went as expected, with Yaddle defeating her enemy as he was knocked down into his own blade, cutting open his neck and bleeding to death. Afterwards, Yaddle returned to the Jedi Order and explained to them what had happened. Understanding the great struggle she went through, and her ability to remain in the light despite all these trials the Force had bestowed upon her, the Jedi decided to make Yaddle into a master, and eventually seat her on the Council. As a member of the Council, Yaddle specialized in maintaining and increasing the Temple's library of knowledge, gathering new books and artifacts from across the galaxy to add to the many shelves and chambers of the archives. While her expansion of the Temple's libraries made her renowned among the other masters, it was her motherly-like treatment of the younglings that gained her love from the youngest of the Temple. For one, many young Jedi initiates came to learn of her centuries-long imprisonment, and her endearment as both encouragement and evidence of the Force's ability to guide one through hardship. Additionally, Yaddle was one of the most compassionate masters at the Temple, willing to always hear out younglings and mentor them through their own problems, with her always happy to offer advice to troubled students. Even someone like Anakin Skywalker, who was known to be closed off even toward his own master, tended to ask her for advice on his personal problems. Yaddle was also known to sneak sweets into the pockets of younglings and turn a blind eye on harmless pranks done by students, so she was very well liked among the youth at the Jedi Temple for all of these reasons, which is why her death was so heavily taken by all when it happened. Yaddle ended up dying 3 years before the Clone Wars on the planet Mawan. The core planet of Mawan was undergoing a crisis as multiple crime lords sought control of the planet. Obi-Wan and Anakin were sent alongside Yaddle to maintain the peace until the Senate could decide what to do with the planet. While there, it was discovered that one of the crime syndicates seeking control was led by Granta Omega, an enemy who had harassed both Anakin and Obi-Wan in previous occasions. During this mission, Anakin's overconfidence and eagerness to take out Omega led to him being captured by this very man who held him as a hostage. Omega then threatened to launch a massive biochemical weapon at a city and kill Anakin if Yaddle didn't come and turn herself over. While Yaddle came to Omega's hideout as he had demanded her to, she did not come to surrender. Rather, through the power of the Force, Yaddle was able to quickly free Anakin from his bindings and attack Omega before the man had a chance to kill his hostage. But she was not quick enough to kill Omega, who was a split second too fast in launching the biochemical weapon at the city. Knowing full well millions would die if the city was hit, Yaddle threw herself at the biochemical weapon as it was being launched, and took it with her as high as possible over the city. Using the full might of the Force, Yaddle was able to absorb the entire contents of the biochemical bomb as it exploded, leaving the city safe from its destruction. Anakin was right below her as he witnessed her die, seeing her whole body evaporate as it took the bomb's full blast. Her death devastated Anakin, as he blamed it on himself, for had he not been captured and held hostage, Yaddle would have been able to stop Omega without needing to sacrifice herself. The precious seconds used to save him could have been used to stop Omega before he detonated the biochemical bomb. But because of him, Yaddle was dead, and Omega was able to escape during the chaos. Although both Obi-Wan and later Yoda told Anakin that he shouldn't blame himself over Yaddle's death, as it was ultimately her choice for sacrificing herself to save everyone, Anakin of course never could fully forgive himself. With Yaddle now gone, her seat on the council was later taken by Shaak Ti. Yaddle was the last Jedi Council member to die before the start of the Clone Wars, and her sacrifice was forever remembered by both the people of Mawan and the Jedi Order. Thanks for watching this video. Help support the channel by becoming a member on our Patreon page, and be sure to subscribe for
All right, so there you go, you guys. This is the original, the true Yaddle lore. Yes, Shaak Ti. And it's amazing how, like, over time, seats had opened up for certain characters like Shaak Ti because of heroic events like what Yaddle went through. And then even with Deepa, who, if you haven't read Shatterpoint or any lore surrounding that, how she basically commits or attempts to commit suicide. We don't have a final. She does die. She's brain dead, I guess you could say, but there's no dated death of her passing, and her seat opens up for Obi-Wan in a sense. And so all this is like lore tying together events that make things happen, whether they're sadly heroic, or sadly tragic. And but you see this synergy of lore, this continuity that is well put together within the single continuity of the canon. And when you look and you get further into these characters that were established before Disney took ownership, before they bought the franchise, before they bought Lucasfilm, because Lucasfilm does not just own one franchise, they have many things underneath them other than Star Wars. You see the destruction of these characters, how they take and do the opposite with them, how they tear them apart, and how they become this lifeless listless type characters that are not recognizable no more. And it's not just the main characters that you see in the movies. It's these characters here that maybe are briefly seen in the movies, or maybe not even seen in them at all, that are totally deconstructed into something totally different and opposite than the original character was shown. And here we are, uncovering more and more. You could pick a character that was brought into the Disney Star Wars lore, and you can almost 100%, I'm maybe about 99.99999% sure that they are bastardized. They are flipped on their heads, and they're not recognizable as we know them from the past. And you could say that's revisionist history. It's not honoring the characters. What does Filoni say? Let's go ahead and play this clip. I have it.
And I've always leaned towards if we're going to create something, we should check and see if it existed already to the fans, because it has way more value if we bring that in. And It's like, why would I just replace it with something new? So if we're going to do an admiral, if we're going to do a big military leader, yeah, I could create a new guy, sure. But what about Thrawn? Thrawn is great. Thrawn is a character we all know. Thrawn has a lot of credibility. So then you ask yourself, is it right to use him? And can we use him in a way that's similar to the books? Or are we using him and it's going to go completely into left field? And there have been times when we wanted to use things from the EU, and I was like, yeah, but we can't use it that way, so why? I don't want to use it and change it. I don't want to use it and make it something completely different. That's rude.
There you go. But they continue to still do it. The chief creative officer still continues to do it. And Yaddle is just another example of that. And this is why so many people have been turning away from Disney Star Wars. Sometimes it takes a little time before they actually do. They have they see more evidence to what we've been talking about and discussing from the start. And they start feeling like they were deceived, right? Because they said, oh, we're going to honor these characters, right? And so they start feeling they're deceived. And there's many people I've talked to, whether here on social media or even face-to-face, on asking me, why is Disney Star Wars, Disney Lucasfilm, Disney Star Wars basically doing what they're doing? And why can't they be faithful to these characters? And, I can't answer that. I can't at all answer why. Only that they want to create their own vision, which I think is very egotistic, I guess you could say, if you want to use that. We all have an ego, good and bad, and that's our personality. But I really think it's an egotistic in a bad way, I guess you could say. I mean, I want to come up with another word other than that, but we'll just play with that word. It's egotistic and narcissist in a way. To not honor what came before. And the biggest narcissist that we've seen just a few minutes ago is Dave Filoni. is Dave Filoni. So with that being said, let's go ahead and start closing out the show. Thank you guys so much for participating. Again, like, subscribe, and share. If you're catching the replay, thank you for making it this long with me. Let me know what you think. And I'm going to play one more video here. What do I want to play as we start parting ways here? This Sunday is our club. So the part 2 of the book 2, Young Jedi Knights, Shadow Academy. I will have the link out here pretty soon. I'm trying to be more spontaneous and just have it out as soon as possible, not near the event. And if you need to become a channel member, I would love for you to become a channel member. It's not necessarily need, it's about a support, which I appreciate. But me giving back is 10% off of my art, and 10%, or not 10%, and then the book club. And eventually I want to do a panel to talk with you guys about the greater George Lucas era of Star Wars, and having some channel members on the panel so we can discuss that and the state of Star Wars, what's going on, what we love, our favorite characters, all of that. Yes. So stay tuned for that. There's a lot of things that have been, I've been cooking up, and will be revealed soon. So you guys are a friggin' amazing. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. And this goes to anybody who are on the shill side or fence riders. Here you go.
Sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Be humble. Sit down. Bitch, sit down.
Prepare yourself for Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire. The evil Empire has struck back with a vengeance, and a new villain, the crime lord Shizor, schemes to replace Darth Vader as the Emperor's second-in-command. With Han Solo held frozen in carbonite by bounty hunter Boba Fett, it's the rebellion's darkest hour. Now, join Jedi warrior Luke Skywalker, hard-charging Chewbacca, and go undercover with heroic pilot Dash Rendar and his booming Outrider. But can Han Solo be freed and Shizor be stopped? Star Wars, Shadows of the Empire. Look for the authentic figures and vehicles from Kenner.
Another happy landing.